YA, if you want to get out of here. Where's your fearless leader? Oh, there he is.
Yeah, we'll get out of here.
Let's go. All right. Take your green sign and get out of here.
Daddy, we're done singing.
So when I was living up in Sault Ste. Marie, we're in this old Baptist church, and there it is. Okay. And it was your typical Baptist church, red carpet, the whole deal. It was a great church to get married in. And but the pulpit was off to the side, kind of Presbyterian style, if you know what I mean. And it was very impractical, especially for someone like me that when you preach, you have to kind of wander a bit. It was up against a wall, so you'd bang yourself against the wall and you'd bounce back into the center. And it was really a weird configuration. So we came up with this plan to basically move and have this pulpit right in the center of things, you know. And so, of course, in our church, it was a big deal. And it got talked about. And this one guy, he was so against it. And we kept reassuring him, it's really no big deal, nothing will change, da 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 da. Anyway, it goes through, the pulpit's right up at the center, and he used to lead worship with a violin, which was really quite nice. And he gets up, like Leland here, and he puts, the very first night with the new system, he puts a thing down, and we didn't even anticipate this, but up above were these ceiling fans, and it turned out that it was right above him. And he starts singing, and all of a sudden the fans start blowing his sheets all over the place. He was so ripped. Anyway, I thought it was funny. He came up with this like fishing line thing of strapping. Anyway, this is kind of funny. Poor Maurice. Anyway, wanted to just give you a picture of what we were talking about last night before we move on to other stuff. And so it's kind of like you're getting this in stages. Last night there was no picture. Today there's a picture that you can barely see in the daylight. And by tonight, you're going to really see what's going on. And maybe for some of you that's a picture of how you're adjusting to this newfound excitement. So last night we just talked about just regional groups and where they are and what they are. And I'll read off on this screen. Basically up in the purple zone up here, that's your Gatineau. Okay? Then you move down here, you've got your Orleans. And down here, this great big area here is, we're calling it country. But that's your Osgoode, Vernon, all the way to Winchester. Kind of moving, Prince of Wales kind of divides it, east-west, and so on. Then this little red area here is, are we calling that Nepean? Is that what we decided? Yeah. So this is Nepean, and this little blue section here, which is kind of Bank Street to, I don't know, anyway, right in this section is called Ottawa East. The green section here is Ottawa West, and this great big section here is Stittsville.
Yeah.
Okay? That's where the cool kids hang out. Alright? And so there's 7 regions. Hang on, I'll take some questions after just in case I answer them by mistake along the way, Natalie. There's 7 regions. But because of the population of our group and the anticipated where the students will come from, we're anticipating that Ottawa West, Nepean, and Country will have 2 groups each. Okay? And so, so those guys are, I guess, the lucky ones in a sense. They will actually get to, sort of, in a modified choice system, be able to choose one of 2 groups in their region. Okay? And again, this is for high school and junior high. And just so we're clear, the Orleans group is the group that's going to be experimenting first semester with being out in the region, actually in Orleans. The Stittsville group is going to be at the church at first semester, and then if all goes well, moving out into Stittsville somewhere second semester. And I'm talking high school semesters here, so that's like February 1st, more or less. Okay? The other 5 regions, which are really represented by 8 groups, they will be at the church all year. There's no plans to move them at any point, certainly this year. And then depending on how things go, we'll either kind of be sitting next March going, okay, that was a fail, let's try, pray about something else. Or we'll go, wow, God's really doing something crazy here. We might be onto something. And we'll see where it goes. Okay? And so I'm not trying to, soft sell and have this big plan that 7 years from now we'll all be all over the city. I'd love to see that, quite frankly, because that means more students will be hearing about Jesus. And it really doesn't matter to me if they hear about him in a theater, in a lounge, or in somebody's living room. That really doesn't matter to me, right? And I know it doesn't matter to you either. But honestly, it's really let's see what happens. See where it goes. Okay? So, to answer a question that came up last night, if a student from Orleans really doesn't want to do this, then we'll just say, okay, why don't you join the Ottawa East group then, and stay here. And that's fine. The other way, that's kind of the negative way of looking at it. The positive way of looking at it is if a student from Manotick says, I really want to be a part of this. I just love the idea of going for it. Can I please join the Orleans group? We'll probably say, sure. Especially if you feel God's calling you to this. And don't be surprised when that happens. Don't be surprised when our student leaders join us later this evening, and I go over this again with them. That there'll be some students going, I want in on that. Because God's just wired people differently that way. And some will be like, I'm all in for that, and I want to do it. Right? Right, Leland? Like Leland wants in. She's already withdrawing from U of T so she can join the other students. Woo! So, misread that one. Okay, so I'll skip through these because they just show a bigger blow up of the thing. Oh, and then you'll see on the slides is that we list the high schools and the middle schools that go with the zones. Okay? So when the students see this the first night, they'll go, oh, I go to Darcy McGee. Oh, I'm Gatineau. Which is kind of obvious because people in Gatineau know they're Gatineau. But here it's a little bit different. See Ottawa West? See all the Ottawa West schools, by the way? In that very small area? But yet we have a relatively small number of students. Well, I guess we have a larger group, but compared to the number of schools that are there and so on. But anyway, this isn't a... So yeah, it just kind of rolls through and goes from there. Yeah, I'll see it. Good. Any questions on that? Thank you. Okay. Any questions there? I know you probably had a chance to think a little bit more, maybe pray about it a bit. This is a time to ask, especially if it's questions that... Natalie, did I answer your question?
Yes.
What was your question?
Oh, I was wondering if Ottawa South was included in the country.
Okay, yeah. More or less, yeah. You see where it divides a little bit. Any thoughts or questions on this? I'd rather take them now than tonight when the kids are here. If you have concerns. Yes.
Okay, so the Stitzel one, you mentioned that in later in the year you're going to start one of these satellite groups.
Yep.
Does that mean that everyone from that small group in the first part of the year is going to actually join that satellite group?
Yes, good question. So, and it needs to be communicated clearly both from whoever the Stittsville sponsors are and from the front as well. If you're from Stittsville and you join the group now, we want you to be a small group all year. So you're planning and preparing now for the move. Okay?
And Stittsville, that one's going to be actually in Stittsville itself, right? Because that looks like it includes Canada and also Brattle. Is that what's happening there?
It does. Is this the Stittsville one that's up? Yeah. Yeah, it does. We don't have a home per se, but I guess the dream location would be kind of in the center of, but truthfully, the Stittsville team will be praying, and God will show them a home that's the perfect home, because that's the neighborhood He wants to do something.
Right.
Kind of in an experiencing God kind of way. Like, where do you actually want to do something special? And then there'll be parents that'll be like, we want to open our home to this because we're all doing this. Nick, is there any way you can play with that to makes it better? The duct tape option's not really working. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Does that help? Do you guys get what was the nuance of that? Because it is significant. You guys have done this already, right? So. Good. Yes?
And it is just the high school group, not the junior high, that
will be part of whatever those areas are?
Yes, again, good particular question. The high school groups will be going out, okay? The junior high will still be divided by regions, but they won't be going out into the communities, okay? Junior high stay at the church no matter what. And this is important because parents will be asking you these things and you need to be able to know the answers. Because the answer is not call Pastor Joey. There's some things you need to know the answers for, okay? Help us out here. Any other questions? Good question, Glenda. Thank you. We good? Any questions, guys, that are more involved in this that I'm missing that would be good to help? Good, we'll leave it there for now. Kind of along the lines of you got to be able to do some stuff on your own. How can I say this? Our dear Amber. Everybody remember Amber? Amber is in. Amber will help you with that. Call Amber. Forward email to Amber. Amber always got back to you and made it work beautifully for you. Amber had a beautiful, beautiful baby boy about a week and a half ago, or a week ago, named Sawyer. And we got to meet him the other day, and he is awesome. And she is wonderfully thrilled to be a mom. And for at least the next year, she will be a mom and not helping us. So do yourself a favor, do me a favor, do Amber a favor, do Sawyer a favor. And delete her contact from your phone. Yes, I'm looking at you, Carol. And lose her email because she no longer works at the church. We hope she'll be back at some point, but for now she doesn't. She's on mat leave, and she hasn't been replaced in the sense of there's another person who's the new Amber. Some of the other admin assistants at the church are trying to pick up some of the slack, but we don't have the luxury, whatever, of Amber this year. And so please be patient with Pastor Matt, Nick, and myself, and Pastor Kenny too. We're trying to do as much as we can, the best we can, but we were somewhat well taken care of last year, and it's a little hard to adjust. So we're trying to figure it out, we're trying to do our best, but just be patient with that, and the more that you can help with that, the better. And so with that in mind, pay attention to the next hour or so, because there's a lot of stuff you're going to hear that if you can just get it and apply it, that'd be way easier than saying, I know you said something about that, but I was daydreaming, so can you just do it? And that kind of stuff. Okay? All right, with that in mind, let's hand these out. Maybe we'll just go, just kind of grab one and pass them those ways. Everybody, if you get one, you're going to need one. Even if you're a seasoned veteran, you still need one because you're going to be turning this in at some point. Okay? Over the next, well, before we get there, I want to make sure we're able to apply what Pastor Matt was talking about last night. So we're going to play a little game, okay? Well, we're going to play two games. So we talked about big rocks in the circles last night, right? Here's where the rubber meets the road. You're going to have 5 students that you're going to be ministering to. Okay? They're going to be called your Fab 5. Okay? In a perfect world that we'll use as our example, it never always works this way, but we'll use this as our example. You're going to have one student, basically, in each of the circles. Okay? Hopefully your student leader will be in the corner. You'll probably have a couple that are keeners that are, reading their Bibles, loving life, just got back from a summer serving at a camp somewhere, and they're all in. You're going to have a student or two that are like, yeah, I prayed with my mom when I was 4, but I'm just kind of hanging out, trying to figure it out, or I don't really care. I'm destined for the mass of this church. And that's kind of sad, but that's where they're at. You'll have a student that maybe is a friend, or maybe is a junior high student who hasn't actually, to use some reformed language, hasn't actually confirmed their faith yet. And so, positionally, it doesn't really matter where they're at, because in their heart, they haven't really decided for themselves, yes, I'm a follower of Jesus. Okay? And then you're going to have some community students, either students that will show up at an event, maybe at a small group sleepover, Maybe you'll meet them when you go and watch your friend, one of your students play a sport or whatever, and you happen to meet their friend, or you're at the school play, or who knows. But you're gonna encounter some of these students as well. Maybe they'll come to the coffee house in the fall and look at you and go, I'm just here because I play the guitar and I'm allowed to play, and my friend invited me, and you know what I mean? So based on what we learned last night about who these students are, the question is how do we get them to move both into a new circle, but also closer to the center of their circle? Okay? And so what I'd like to suggest is as you take the 5 big rocks, Lifer, and you're doing an analysis on these students as you're getting to know them, you want to determine, first of all, where they're at within the circle that they claim to be, and then have a good, honest discussion with them, as in, what are you going to do in each of these 5 big rock areas to move closer to the center? Now, what's the first question you have to ask before you even get to that question? It's a yes or no. Assuming you've established where they're at, and it's an honest conversation, of course. What's the question that kind of precipitates any of this?
Do you want to move?
Do you want to move? Right? Do you actually want to move closer to the center of the circle, i.e. closer to God? And if they say yes, reluctantly, then you can kind of give them some ideas, but expect a reluctant growth. If they're like, yeah, I really do. You know, I was at camp last week, and I really encountered God for the first time. For the first time, I sang a song, and it's like I got it. You know, the words just finally hit me. And I really want to be, you know. But you got to find out, do you actually want to? Because if you don't want to, you know, then you're just like me talking to my doctor who says, you know, you should probably lose some weight. And I'm like, yeah. Do you want to? Well, yeah, you know, I guess, sort of. You know, it's got to be like, yeah, I'm in on this, right? So, assuming they're in and they actually want to, okay? What you want to do is identify where they're at, and then for each of the big rocks, identify something they can do that's reasonable. I'm going to give you one example, and I'm going to ask you guys to participate in some of the other examples, okay? We'll make it fun. You can only answer one time, and then you got to jump into someone else, okay? If you've got a tip, I'll take the easiest one. If you've got a typical congregation student, he's been hanging around the church most of his life, he has a Bible that his parents gave him when he entered junior high, he carries it with him sometimes, he's there, and he's pretty confident he's going to heaven. He's there. He just gets back from camp, and he says, you know, Skylar, I love God. I realized this summer that I should really be spending more time in the Word. What do you think I should do? The knee-jerk answer that, to be honest with you, I used to give for years is, you should get up every morning and spend half an hour in the Word with the Lord. And then journal what you're learning. And then next week we'll discuss what you journaled. Okay? That's a ginormous step, I would say, in the radical discipleship area from congregation to committed. And if you could do it, awesome. But what I've experienced or observed over the years is, if you tell that to a student or to anyone, they're going to go. The first day, maybe 2, they're going to go for it. The third day, they're going to sleep in. The fourth day, they're going to have lost their Bible. And by the next week, they're like, yeah, I'm a failure. I'm out. What if you said rather, how many times out of 7 are you reading your Bible currently? 0. How many would you like to be? 7. What's realistic? 4. Okay, why don't we try 2? How about this week twice you get up and read your Bible? How long would you like to read your Bible for? Oh, I read somewhere that Billy Graham spends 3 hours in the Word every morning, so like maybe an hour? Like, okay, is that realistic? No. What's realistic? Half an hour. How about 10 minutes? What if for twice this week you spend 10 minutes reading God's Word? and jot down what you read. And we can talk about that. How's that? And here's my, we're Facebook message friends, we're texting friends, whatever it is you communicate with, and just drop me a quick note saying I did it. And I'll celebrate with you. Okay? And then when he gets back the next week, and you go, so how'd it go? He's like, I actually read it 3 times this week. It was crazy. I feel like I'm in the presence of the holy, 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 And you're like, awesome! You see this, a small success is better than a big failure kind of thinking? Okay, does that help a little bit? Okay, so now let's take that kind of thinking and apply it to the different circle type people. Okay? If you're a community student, which means, by definition, you are committed to living apart from Jesus. Okay? What would be a step in any of the 5 big rocks? And I'm looking for kind of 5 quick answers to each circle. Okay? From each of the big rocks, what would be a step this person could make? So just yell out the big rock and then something we could encourage them to do. And please just fire it out, because even if you're wrong, that'll help us get to something.
Come to worship on Sunday.
Sure, why don't you try coming to church? Once. Don't commit to every week, but once. Why not? Good, excellent. Glenda's out. Someone else.
From the youth group.
Okay, I feel like you're just piggybacking on hers. But name the big rock and then name what they would do. So Glenda said worship. She meant to say lavish worship, of course. And try coming to church once. See what happens. People sometimes wander in the church for who knows what reason, and they just want a tour or whatever. And I say, hey, why don't you come back Sunday and together we'll see if lightning strikes. And they're like, oh, okay, maybe. And just a little movement. Intentional community. What would be something they could do? Okay. I think you're thinking faithful service. But intentional community student. What could be something they could do to move towards?
Intentionally, talk to people, Christians that they know.
Sure. Yeah. What if you said to them, hey, do you know any Christians in your life? Yeah, this guy in my math class, he's a Christian guy, he goes to Cedar View. Cool. Why don't you ask him what he thinks? You ask him why he's a Christian. Something simple. Where you're engaging someone who's good. Okay, steps out, and you're still in. That's a good news. Okay? And so are you, by the way. Faithful service. LIF. Yeah, faithful service. What would you do with the community guy?
Get them on welcome blanket.
Sure. Do you want to come hold a sign? We're going to Bridges next week. You want to come serve the homeless? You don't even have to love Jesus to hand out salad. You're not doing it in Jesus' name, so whatever. But still, you're welcome to join us. Right? Do you want to come try? Yeah, no, most people will, because most students, even if they are far away from God or committed to being apart from God, most of them will recognize the value of helping other people. And what happens there? You're standing with your Christian kids. Place them strategically, by the way. Years ago, we were doing a Christian concert, and I had this guy who was just released from detention, and he was doing, not school detention like the jail one, and he was doing community hours, and somehow he got hooked up with me. And so I had him helping me set up for this concert, and I said, oh, by the way, you're going to be stationed in the mosh pit. Well, I wanted him there because he was a big guy and he could run some security, but I wanted him there because I wanted him standing right there when the gospel went out. Right? So be strategic. Community kid shows up, yeah, okay, I'll help serve salad. Put him beside your core kid. And say to your core kid, by the way, we've got an hour with this guy. Make sure he is ready to nick another step by the end of the night. You know what I mean? Be strategic that way. Okay, FE. What can you do effective outreach-wise with someone who's committed to living apart from Jesus?
Go to Youth Alpha in your school.
Sure. Yeah. What school do you go to? Longfield. Hey, did you know they're giving away free pizza and having an Ask the Pastor thing on next Tuesday? Right? Connect that way. Something simple. Good. ER, radical discipleship. little John booklets? Here, read this. What I often do is people, they're like, I don't think Jesus is God. That's why I don't want to follow him. Okay, fair enough. How about you read this? Read the first chapter. And just underline the number of times you see Jesus claiming to be God. And then we can talk about it. You know, that's pretty radical for someone who's committed to living apart from Jesus, right? Good. Okay, we get the flavor of the game here. We're good. We want to move this along because we've got ice cream this afternoon. We want to be done by then. Okay, crowd student considering going into the congregation, moving that way. Again, a crowd student is committed to considering the message of Jesus. What would they do? Lavish worship. What's one thing they could do? Sorry? Sure. Play guitar? Play. Why not? Now, I know some people are like, whoa, you can't lead in worship unless you really love Jesus. Well, yeah, sort of, maybe. You know, come work the soundboard. Come be a part of it. You know, come to practice. You know. Okay, something, yeah. What else on lavish worship? That's good.
Encourage them to sing songs.
So you're still in the game.
Encourage them to actually sing the songs with the group.
Yeah! How about why don't you consider even the words that people are singing? You know, when I was up in Sault Ste. Marie, we had this worship service, and after the service, this girl came into my office with her friend, and can we talk to you? Sure. She sat down, and I said, so what are we talking about? She says, my friend so-and-so, she's just started coming out to a different youth group. I said, okay, nice to meet you. So why are we here? She says, I was watching the students singing tonight, and I don't know what it is, but I want that. Right? So just say, hey, why don't you, when the singing time comes, I know it's maybe hard to engage because you don't actually know Jesus, but why don't you consider the words, or consider why it is these students are so passionately, you know. I watch Leland when she's leading singing, and I go, there must be a God. Don't you get that feeling? That's the feeling I get. There must be a God because she loves something. You know, something's going on there. You know what I mean? And so, good. Intentional community. What could happen there? At this point now, they're probably either coming to Youth Alpha, maybe they're coming to your small group. What's something they could do within the small group context? Come on. Sure, come up to something that maybe it'll be a little bit more community-minded, but when you're willing to consider, remember the criteria, you're willing to consider the message of Jesus. What should somebody who's not accepted Jesus be thinking and talking about within a small group context? Jesus. Sure, but like, what though? Pastor Matt, can you get the coffee out and just sort of pour it in their systems? If you haven't answered yet, come up with an answer. This isn't that hard. I don't think it is. What can we do? Those of you who have answered already, just wave at me so I know you know an answer. Thank you. Okay, the rest of you, feel the glare of condemnation and start playing my game. What would they do? If you don't know Jesus and you're in intentional community with someone, what would be a step towards knowing Jesus?
Talk about it.
Talk about it, more specifically.
Bring them to a small group.
Sorry?
Bring them to a small group.
Yeah, they're in the small group already. But what are they doing in the small group? I'm here now. Ask questions. Right? How about create an environment where you say, hey, Jordan, I know you don't know Jesus yet, and kind of, you know, wink, nudge, nudge, not yet. But you know what? This is a safe place. I want to challenge you to ask the questions you're thinking about as to why you don't know. And let our group answer them for you. Is that fair? I know when students come into Youth Alpha, and I know that they're the friend, I'll try to pull them aside at some point and go, hey, you know what, Jesse, we're trying to make this a safe place, so can you help me make it a safe place? And when you have a question, just ask it. You know, if you got a question, especially one that's holding you back from a relationship with God, just ask the question. Okay? Okay. Boy, we're not going nearly as fast as I thought we would. So let's really pick this up now, okay? Where are we at? Radical, a faithful service.
Give them a job.
Give them a job. Go stack chairs. Hold a sign. You know? Give them something to do. You're part of things. You know? Go, you know, roll up the cables, whatever. Okay, good. Effective outreach. Go to Alpha. Okay, this is not that hard, people. Come on. We should have booked a week here. Come on, guys. I believe in you. Think. Radicals. Okay, let's go to you're committed now. Which, by the way, we need to know this one because I would say 60% of 70% of our students live in committed. And quite honestly, if nothing changes, they'll spend their whole life sitting in the congregation circle. They'll spend their whole life saying, "I know God, and that's enough for me. Don't bother me about anything else." Sad, isn't it? That's where most Christian, air quotes intended, people live their whole lives. And they wonder why they don't have the joy of the Lord. Sad place to live. Anyway, but that's where most of our students will live and stay unless they're actually challenged. So, congregation student, committed to a relationship with Jesus and His church. Which basically means I said a prayer and I'll come to church. Right? That's the extent of my relationship with God. Which puts a lot of pressure on the preacher, doesn't it? You know? What would we do with them lavish worship-wise?
Worship band?
Sure. Put them in a little worship band. Why not? Good. What else could we do?
Add songs to their playlist. Different.
Sure. Let me put some, yeah. Can I buy you an album? Here's a gift card. It comes with some strings, you know. Yeah. Give us some things to think about. Sure. If I was up here with a student like that, I'd say, hey, why don't you just take some time and lay out on that deck out there tonight and stare up at the stars. And just practice worshiping God. You know. Okay, that's really intentional community. What would you say there?
Get an accountability part.
Sure. Okay, within the context of small group though. Sure, that's there for sure. What else?
Get baptized.
Get baptized. Have you been baptized? You know? Excellent. What else? There's a lot in here. I think it's particular to the context of your small group times.
Ask them if they have prayer requests.
Prayer requests. Like actually share. You know? How many of us have kids in our group that sit there and they honestly believe they're going to heaven? And I'm not trying to mess with people's understanding of eternal security and all that, but they really believe they're going to heaven. They sit week after week after week after week doing this and never actually engage in the small group time. Especially guys. Shame me. Right?
Take away their phones.
Take away your phones, sure. Yeah. But specific to this issue of intentional community, what can they do? Now, you kind of hit on it. Share prayer requests. You take them aside and say, hey, how about this year, when it comes to a small group time, why don't you make it your goal to actually share your heart? Maybe once a month. Just really share what's actually on your heart. Well, you know, what would that look like? I'd have to think about what's on my heart. Right? Why don't you make that a goal? Okay, faithful service. Is that where we're at? Yeah.
Serve in Sunday school.
Sure. Go help in the nursery. Go hold a baby. Go to Sunday school. Go hold the camera. Go hold a sign. Any of these things. Right?
They wouldn't be ready for a student leader.
Probably not, but maybe moving towards that. Yeah. You know, maybe a grade 11 student, perhaps. You know. Find a place to serve, for sure. Okay, what are we at? Effective outreach.
Encourage them to invite a friend.
Sure. Or even better, share their faith with a friend. What would we rather have? Have all of our youth group bring a friend out to the coffee house outreach? Or all of our students actually in their schools sharing their faith once a month with a friend, like actually sharing the gospel? What would we rather have? Not rhetorical.
The second one.
The second one, right? You know? But yeah, encourage them. Say, hey, you know what? You say you're a Christian? Yeah. You're committed to the church? Yeah. You're committed to Jesus? Yeah. What would it look like if once this year you sat someone down and said, even if you sat them down and said, you know, Caitlin, I promised somebody I'd do this, so could you just listen for 5 minutes? Let me tell you about Jesus. You know? What if once you did that, and God in His economy comes in and blows that whole situation away to to the point where that person becomes one of the greatest evangelists of our time. What if that were to happen? Because you took a little step. Okay? Radical discipleship. What would you encourage them to do? Sure. Take a 5-hour energy course. The way we're structured Sunday mornings, by the way, our Met Youth Academy is really not what we call radical discipleship. It's a Sunday school class. Take that for what it's worth. But our 5-hour energy classes, that's radical. What else is radical that our students can get involved in? Leland, Jordan, Joel. Quizzing. Sign up for quizzing. You're like, what? You love Jesus? Yes. You love the church? Yes. How about you memorize His Word? I can't do that. How many formulas do you have to memorize for your science class? I think you can do it. Right? In fact, I know you can do it. Right? So, there's a radical thing. How about take one? I sometimes have students in grade 11 or 12 where they'll go, I don't want to go to Bible college because I can't handle this. It's going to be too hard. Why don't you come to one 5-hour energy class? Because it's designed to give you a taste of what a Bible college course would look like. By the way, I'm going to be teaching one starting September 11th on Christology. It's the study of Christ, and you're all welcome to be a part of it. But certainly it's for grade 11s and up to young adults. Grade 11s and up, I guess we would say, but it's kind of targeting young adults and grade 11 and 12 students. Why don't you come with one of those students? Say, let's take it together. 5 weeks. What's the worst that can happen? You understand the virgin birth better. And you're not doing, what did you say, Matt, last night? You're not throwing up your hands going, I don't know, it's something about Mary not having sex. I don't know what that means, really. You know? So there's something. All right, let's go to committed student wanting to move into the core now. Now we're getting kind of for reals here a bit, right? Lavish worship, what would you say to them?
Help them use their artistic gifts to worship God.
Sure.
If they are a poet, help them like write a poem.
Yeah.
Or if they want to write a song, like something like that. And actually worship themselves.
Yeah. Start to understand that God has put in you something that He intends for you to use to worship Him. Right? And whatever that form takes on, there is something there. I had a good friend named Ray who years ago he came to Christ, and his whole art, he's a great artist, and all of a sudden his art just went from darkness to light. Like, it was unbelievable. He had this painting about the size of one of these banners, and it was just dark and gray and really, really good, but really dark. And then he went to Alpha at the church with me. He came to Christ. And I used to go to his house once a week and look at his art, and if you know me, it's like, I don't know what to say. It's good. You know what I mean? Like, it was just the odd couple. And then I'd tell him about the brooms, and he'd go, okay, I think that's good. You know, that was our relationship. But I remember this one thing, I just remember staring at it going, that is so dark. And then he came to Christ. And about a month or so after that, I was wandering through his art studio in his basement, and I came upon this picture, and he had thrown like a bit of color into it, and all of a sudden it just came to life. And I stood there going, wow. And he's like, yeah, I was praying one morning, and I just got over here, and I just started adding a little color to it. It's really come to life, hasn't it? I'm like, are you kidding me? And that was sort of his world was just exploding with God infused into his art. Because that's how God created him for, right? But just even thinking at that level to go, God has put something in me, and He wants to use that passion to worship Him. You know? And it doesn't matter what per se, it's that you're actually thinking at that level. Okay? And what is it that God's made you passionate about, and how can you glorify Him with it? Okay? And that could be music, could be art, could be sport, could be, you know, you name it. Okay, intentional community. Here's where the student leadership piece comes in for sure.
Have them pray.
Right? Have them pray or lead the prayers. I'll often say to students, I know when we take students up to Manitoulin, which are basically these types of students, we'll take them up and I'll say, we have the 7-second rule. Because we have our native students there, and it's really the retreat's more for them, but I'll be like, could somebody read this verse? It's right up on the screen. And I'll say to them, count to 7, and if none of our native friends do it, then you jump up and do it. Okay? And And Skylar always jumps up early because he's bald and he thinks he's real cool that way. And it's just kind of like, yeah, it's time to pray. I expect you to be leading. Right? I expect you to be teaching these younger students what it is to pray. When it comes to reading script, I expect you to be engaged in this kind of thing. Good. What else? Real quickly, because this is one that a lot of your student leaders especially will be playing. Sorry?
Read an alphabet?
Sure. Excellent. In your school, in your community, I don't care, but mostly it's in your school, right? Lead a youth alpha group. Do you know that? You guys know Megan White? Little Megan? Cute little girl goes to Longfields. I was in at Longfields doing a world religions Christian talk thing, and the teacher was talking to me afterwards. She wouldn't stop talking about the impact Megan, and a couple other students, to be fair, but Megan is the one she kept talking about, has had on their school and on the faculty at their school, the teachers, by simply being Jesus. Because, you know, Megan, she's not standing on a soapbox preaching in the cafeteria, but she is just, you know, and it's incredible. So yeah, just get involved, do something at your school, you know, that way. Youth Alpha, something like that. Okay, anything else real quick?
Need worship?
Sorry?
Need worship?
Sure. You got the gifts, get up there, go for it. If you don't, pray for the people that do. And find something else to do, right? That's me. I'm always praying for them. You know it's bad when they ask you to stop singing and just pray? Anyway, sort of kidding. And then, where are we at? Lavish words of intentional community faithful service. Where are we at? Vector outreach. We talked about our radical discipleship. These guys should be at the 5-hour imaging classes. Right? Like there's just no question about it, they should be. They should be quizzing. If you get to know your students, you'll meet some of them tonight even as they come, you can look at them and say, hey, because we'll have an exercise where they can actually get their magnets and put it on. You're a committed student? Yeah, good. So you're signed up for quiz again. That's radical. You know? So either sign up for quizzing or move your magnet. You move the magnet or I will! But you know, honestly, there's absolutely no reason why they shouldn't be in the quizzing program. I cannot believe there's a reason. And so anyway, we can go to that. Okay, core student now. The core student separates themselves from the rest by having a passion to see others experience full life in Jesus. Okay? How can we encourage a core student in the 5 Big Rock areas? Lavish worship.
Worship in big church?
Sure. One of my favorite things is when I can talk to Jason, Pastor Jason or Stevie and go, hey, you really need to be, you know, I remember when Josiah Mills was in grade, 9 or 10 or something, I think it was grade 10, I said to Jason, I said, you gotta look at this guy. I know he's young, but seriously, God has his hand on this guy to lead. And we've seen that. And pretty much every year I'm like, if you're looking for real worship leaders, come check out our high school students, because they really are top down things, you know. And I'm a little biased, but it's kind of true still, too. And so, yeah. Or even within the worship team experience, become kind of a leader. Help Laura Hammer out. That's kind of how she journeyed through. Because there's a bigger part than just leading the song. It's actually developing younger leaders and so on, getting involved that way. What about intentional community? Again, they're student leaders for sure. What are they doing? Sorry?
Should we go wide?
Nope. Nope. Sorry. You're still in the game. But, I mean, not until the age out. What can they be doing in there?
Engage with the small groups, asking questions.
Sure. What I like to say is when you get to the center of the circle, you should be going full circle. So Henning's got a core student in his group, and he's all about seeing people come to Christ, but he's also got a community student in his group. When Henning goes to the community student's hockey game, who should be going with him? Right? You're killing 2 birds with 1 stone, by the way. But you're actually giving him an opportunity to reach out to someone who needs Christ. You're engaging him and say, hey, you know what? Natalie, she hasn't accepted Jesus yet. We're really praying for her. Would you consider coming to Youth Alpha with her and me? And you know what I mean? So kind of helping them think the way you're learning to think and develop them. Does that make sense? So we don't want to age them out early. Okay, we want them to develop within the age and stage of life they are, but we got to actually give them something that's going to challenge them. Otherwise, they will. You're right. We'll see kids going on. I've seen this before. I've done this before. I've seen that game. I've heard that sermon. You know. But when they're actually involved in it more, that's there. And that's key for you guys as sponsors to be identifying this in the students. You know? Okay, so where are we at? Intentional community faithful service. How about instead of helping in a class, they take on a class for themselves? The Sunday school, I mean. Other ideas on that, faithful service?
Could be small group as well.
Sure they could. Yeah. There's some students that when a sponsor's away, you know, and it's not an automatic, but there's some students where you go, yeah. Valerie Coburn last year. Sponsor, no sponsor, whatever. You got this. Yeah, I'm good. You know. There's some students where you're going to be able to say to your coaches, yeah, they're good. You know, you don't have to, you know what I mean? They can handle it. That doesn't mean you get to quit and what the things, but you know what I mean? Find ways to really challenge them to step up in that leadership and in that service. Okay, effective outreach.
Short-term trips.
Sorry?
Short-term trips.
Sure. Yeah. But again, be more involved in the leadership of and so on.
Or even like outreach to their own school or something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're going after Youth Alpha now. Some of these students, and Justin Ernst, I talk about a lot, mainly because I got the chance to hang out with him last year. He's the kind of guy that not only was doing everything, but he was actually had a progression plan because he was graduating. And in the last 3 or 4 meetings of the year, he was actually talking to other students who were in grade 10 and 11 saying, who is going to take this over next year? So he was thinking bigger than just him experiencing this. You know, so just to think bigger that way. Okay? And then radical discipleship. Obviously, they're in quizzing. Obviously. You know, they're taking the 5-hour. What's the thing they should be doing once they graduate high school? Thank you very much. Good. So it's just thinking, and these are just kind of quick, not as quick as I'd hope, but quick examples of how we take a student and help them grow through the circles. Okay? And so when we talk about praying for our students and praying life upon them, this is what we're asking. You've got your 5 students and you're praying for them, you're thinking, what exactly does Justin need as a core student this year in the area of lavish worship, Lord? Help me to see that. Help Justin to see that. Help us together to, you know what I mean? That's adding depth to a prayer. Okay? That sound good? We'll leave that for now. Is that okay? All right. Let's switch gears then and go to some boring stuff that we need to go through, and it's important. You're like, what do you mean boring stuff? Hopefully that got you thinking though. Did it get you thinking a little bit? Yeah. Okay, good. What? Now you're talking. Is that the whole exercise saying no? All right. Take this out here. I want to walk through this with you. What order should we go in? Let's talk about child youth worker protection, which isn't in this paper. All of you, to be a sponsor, have gone through this online, correct? Where you've read the thing and then there's a little quiz, right? Is that still going on online? Yeah, just nod at me if that's happening. I'm looking for some of you guys to go, yeah, I did that. Who's a new sponsor? Glenda, when you filled your thing out,
I'm not sure.
you read through the thing?
Yes.
Okay. And so,
I don't remember a quiz.
okay. It used to be on paper that it would say, according to page 12, what do you do in this situation? But maybe,
Maybe I did.
yeah, okay. Do you know if it's still there or not?
It's still there.
Yeah, okay. So, all right. So that is the Child Youth Worker Protection Policy. That's a policy that's been written for basically ages 17 and under. Some church, there's other programs. In fact, we're thinking about moving to one called Plan to Protect, which is a little bit more of a universal one. This one was written, put together actually by Pastor Ron and myself, and there's a couple other people around the table, Pastor Ron and myself back in 2002, and kind of customized, if you will, for the uniqueness of church ministry in the Met church setting. And I don't want to go through the whole policy with you today, but I do want to highlight a few things that you need to know, and we expect you to follow. Okay? And I say this with love, but we expect you to follow. Because when stuff goes wrong, we need to have the confidence that you're following these things. And so we need to be proactive, and then also we need to be reactive, and so on. So let me just highlight a few things. For starters, the reason we have 2 sponsors in a small group, there's a lot of reasons, but one of them is our policy says that an adult's not to be alone with a minor. Okay? And so that's why we have 2 sponsors. That's why it's important you're both there Tuesday nights. That's why we want you in the classroom we assign you to. Because the commitment we've made is, and it's a variance in the letter of the law to this policy, is that when Skylar and Joel are partners and Joel's not there that night, rather than saying Skylar has to go in so there's another adult with the group, Skylar can be alone with his group, but he's in a room with a window, and we've made a commitment that we're actually walking around keeping an eye on things. So when you see us wandering around and kind of just glancing in, it's not that we don't trust you, it's that we're trying to honor the policy that's in place. So that's why it's important that you don't just take your group and take off somewhere because the weather's nice. Okay? And as much as we'd love for that to happen, sort of, not really, as in we'd love for you to be happy, but it's really hard when you have 37 groups and all of a sudden, hey, we're just going to go over to Timmy's for a small group tonight, okay? I like that breaks so many policy things, but it's very hard to administrate that, to be aware of that. A parent comes in and says, where's my daughter? We're like, she's in room 136 according to my binder. And Carol always has the binder. And you go to 136 and there's no one there. And then 20 minutes after youth group's over, you guys wander back with the Timmy's cup in your hand. And you're like, oh yeah, we thought it was no big deal. It's that kind of thing. So that's why it's important that these things are in place.
Joey, do they have to keep the door open?
No,
Okay.
but they do need. But that is why you're in rooms. All the rooms have glass windows in them. To be honest, it's for you guys too because you're all minors. But with children and so on, it's a big deal. Okay. When it comes to being alone with students, we want you to relationally engage with them. We want you to spend an hour or 2, which is part of your commitment, a week, engaging with them. We want you to sit at Tim Hortons and talk to them about life. Okay? How you get there and how all that works is where the policy comes into place. The easiest thing you can do is say, hey, I'll meet you at Tim Hortons, the corner of Bank and Hunt Club or whatever. Meet you there at 4. And you meet there together, you have your coffee, you eat your donut, you go your separate ways. That's the easiest. Okay? Where you have to get into driving it back and forth, we really, really, really want you to avoid being alone in a vehicle with a minor at any time. Okay? If you find yourself alone with a minor in your car, it should be the exception. And the exception should happen like exceptionally. It shouldn't be every week, oops, there's another exception. Okay? We want you to really honor that. And quite honestly, parents are getting all of this for basically nothing. Ties to the church, and your kids get this unbelievable program. Surely they can pick their kids up out of the okay? Or surely they can arrange another parent driving their kid home. It doesn't have to be you. And I know that all of you guys in your hearts just want to love these kids, and if that means driving them, then I'll do it. But But work with them, work with their parents, let your coaches help you. Let Matt or Nick or I help you to set up a system where they actually are picking up their own kids. As much as possible. Okay? If there's a case where you absolutely, there's just no way around it, it's a snowstorm hit in the middle of youth group and you're going, you know, and the parent's car won't start, like that's what I'm considering exceptional. And you're like, okay, what do? I guess what you want to do in that situation is you got to log all this, you call the parent, you get permission from the parent. The student doesn't call the parent and tell you they call the parent, because students, no offense, former students, are liars, and they will lie to get what they want to do. Okay? You talk to the parent. Can I have permission to drive your student home? It's currently 9:30. I'm leaving the church here now, and I should be at your house at 9:50 according to my phone. Okay? GPS. Does that make sense? That's the kind of, you know, it should be more of a pain for the parent to give you permission to drive your student home than for them to just come and get their student. Okay? That's really the big gist of it. When it comes to going places and being with them, you want to avoid, here it's kind of like stages of what you want to avoid. There's absolutely never a time that Skylar would be driving a female minor home in a car by himself. That would never happen. There's no exception that would allow for that. Unless it's Renee and he's driving his daughter home. Right? Like there's just no exception for that. There might be the exception where Krista's driving, you know, a female and that's, you know, but there would never be a time where that would work. Okay? I would rather you call a cab for the kid and bill the parents when they get home. Okay?
So the same
But ask for help. Sorry?
Same sex is okay? Or
It's not okay. That's the exception. That's the once a year exception. You know, Christmas is an exception to the normal routine of life. That's what I mean by exception. The never is the co-ed situation. Okay? You may find yourself in a position where you're driving 2 or 3 students home, and there's a little bit more flex there. You may kind of work around it if you have a grade 12 student who happens to turn 18 early, and that kind of helps play within the, you know, within the realms of it. In other words, don't put yourself in situations where if something goes bad, it goes really bad. Okay? Because it will go bad, and it'll go bad fast. Okay? All the student has to do is hear from you in small group time that homosexuality is wrong, and you all of a sudden hate them because of that, and then you drive them home and you decide you're going to accuse them of something. You know, a student accusing the sponsor of something, and we've just spent years and thousands of dollars and hundreds of thousands of dollars in reputation of the entire church because you thought, oh well, it doesn't apply to me. It applies to you. It applies to all of us. Okay? So really think seriously about that, and we ask you to abide by that policy. Anytime you're meeting with a student in a legit situation, anytime, we're so happy you are. We love that you are. We just need to make sure we know that it's happening. And by we know, I don't mean we don't need to. I mean, we love to hear the stories, but you don't need to tell us in that sense. But online, on metyouth.com, there is a sponsor link that is password protected. And in there, we have our, what do we call it, green book online or something? We still call it that? Well, it used to be a green book that sat out at the kiosk. You could physically write. Now it's called green binder online. And so that's where the name comes from. But you go there and you type in, had coffee with Julia tonight. It was great. You know, 7 to 9. Tim Hortons, you know, Bank and Hunt Club, whatever. Okay, I know it would be Starbucks, but you know. Okay, and so anytime you're with students off campus, which we want you to do, we just ask that you record it. And again, that just helps in the case that something does go wrong. We can say, well, according to this is what they were doing. Okay? Yes, ma'am?
Just to verify, we fill that in after we've met with them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because then you know for sure what exactly happened. But by after, I mean before you go to bed that night.
Yeah.
Kind of deal. Yeah. Okay? And then again, it's When I was in Bible college, the guy said this. He said, at the end of this talk, he goes, bottom line, there's two people you can't trust. Everyone else and yourself. So these things are set up to protect us from people and protect us from ourselves too. And yes, Carrie.
Question. I think last year at some point, it was me, my co-sponsor, and all our students, and the Green Bible Forum, our student leader filled it out for us. Is that okay?
No. But we forgive you, see you dealing.
Okay.
But yeah, no, that's not something you should be downloading for delegating to your student leaders. That's something you should be doing as adults. Okay? Are we good? Any other questions on that kind of stuff? Carol, Matt, Nick, anyone that I'm missing something that we need to talk about? That covers sort of those are the real issues that come up, Jesse?
Being out in the country, I'm sure we're going to get students where there's not really Tims nearby, as to be like a 20-minute drive for them.
Yeah.
So what if they can get a drive there, but they can't get a drive back?
Sure. Well, again, so all this stuff still applies, even in the country.
Yeah.
But here's some fun ideas around that. Rather than going to Tim, you say, hey, how about I come over to your place and we'll have coffee at the kitchen table.
Okay, so like
Make sure the parents are there.
Yeah,
Or-
so like bringing coffee to the house then?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, or to be honest with you, most parents, if you're to call and say, hey, I was wanting to spend a little more time with John, is it okay if I come hang at your place, play some video games? For sure. Just, policy dictates that you need to be there. Is that okay? Yeah. And so there's ways to, to make that work. And think about that when we go through some of the other stuff too. Okay. Yes?
If the parent would text him and say, hey, it's okay for you to meet my son at Tim's from this time to time, would that,
Yeah.
could you use that?
Here's the problem. And students will lie. And they'll pick up their parents' phone and text on their behalf. It's happened before, it'll happen again. Right? Right, Leland? If you really think, when you're trying to decide, think worst case scenario. Worst case scenario, Renee calls me up. Where is Jen? Where is she? Well, she's with Melody. He gave her permission. I got the text right here. I got the text. I don't even have my phone. Where is she? Now that's an irate parent who should be. Probably a little more irate than his daughter. But, not that Jen would ever do that, of course, but, but it really is, the verbal is really what we're looking for. Okay? And I know that's a pain to parents. And I know parents will say to you, can I just write you one note for the whole year that you can hang out with my daughter whenever you want? No! You can't! Okay? It really is a 12-second step to any time you're going out. Okay? The best way to get around it, I'll get to the end. The best way to get around all this, of course, is to meet in multiple people at a time. And that goes back to this. Take your core student with you when you go to meet with your other students. Take your committed student with you when you go to meet with, you know what I mean? Like,
And by taking them with you, you mean have them meet with you.
right.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Loose with my words there. But yeah. But meet as a group. It's a lot easier. Right? Or Kevin Scott. You guys, some of you know Kevin Scott? He was great at this. When we used to have youth group down in the Glebe, he would show up every week. Now, I know not all of your schedules allow for this, but he was very strategic about it. He would come every week, an hour and a half early, and he would have two guys that would meet him there. And we'd be at the Glebe, and these two guys would show up. We're here to meet Kevin. Oh, okay, stay right there. We'll be here in a minute. They'll show up, they walk down the street, they go to the candy store, they buy candy, they come back. That's what Kevin did. And he would just work through his group. And it was so simple. And so anyway, you had a question, Henry, sorry.
So, is it okay for one spot to be along with multiple kids, especially people driving?
Driving, that is a much more acceptable situation. Although you got to think, now in your case you have a daughter, so she'll always be in the car with you as you're dropping kids off, so that helps.
So that counts? I can have my daughter and one other kid?
Still get the permission, but yes, that's a little bit more acceptable. Okay? Again, it's sort of levels of, you know, when I lived up in the Sioux, I had a gal that lived in our house for her grade 12 year. She was boarding with us. Came to youth group, loved the Lord, great gal. And and I basically told her, I said, you've got a bus to youth group, which was downtown, and then I'll drive you home. But I was driving a car full of kids home. And I would drive to my house and drop her off first, so that the last kid I was with was not a girl. You know, it was just like, all right, see you in an hour, Allison. Yeah, bye. Thanks for the ride. And then you'd circle the rest of the city and then come back and so you're just working at, you know. And we're very thankful we haven't had incidents that are crazy, but part of it is because we are pretty, we try to be pretty diligent on this, and we ask you to do the same. And that's part of signing up to work with us here. Okay? Any more questions on this? Yes, sir.
Covering, I usually cover what to report.
Thank you. Is that part of this or no? I know it's not. Okay, good. Thank you, Pastor Matt. And this has come up, and we haven't been doing well on this. So we're going to do better this year, okay? And if you're here and your partner, and you don't even know who your sponsor partner is yet, but well, you realize that they didn't hear this. I think, are we recording this?
Yeah.
So you're watching this because you missed out on a great retreat, so pay attention. When we're...
Yes, you.
You're in a small group, and the student is sharing from their heart, which is great, that's what we want, and they share with you that they're cutting themselves. That would be considered self-injury. A switch flips in your brain. You're not to leave the building, and nor is that student, until you've reported it to either Pastor Matt or myself or one of the coaches. What will happen is I'm picking on Krista, but Caitlin comes to me and says, hey, a girl just told me she's cutting herself. I'll say, great, can you grab the girl, and I'm going to grab Carol, and we'll meet you in such and such a room. You'll get her. The whole way along, you're really doing the pastoral work in her life. You're being there to love on her and making sure she knows it's going to be okay. Because it will be okay. This is why God surfaced this. But you're going to take her. We'll meet with her. We'll ask her a few questions just to make sure we're all agreeing on what the problem is. And then we'll deal with it. And the way we deal with it is simply this. And this, we need to take a deep breath and understand who we are and who we aren't in students' lives. We are their sponsors. We love them. We want to minister to them. We want to pray for them. We want to challenge them. We want to do all these things. But this is who we're not. We're not their parents. And we're not their legal guardians. And we don't have the legal right to know what's best for them. And we certainly don't have the legal right to keep from their parents what's going on in their life. Okay? 99.9% of the cases I've dealt with over the years, this is what happens. Caitlin brings a girl in, we sit down, hey, I hear you're having some troubles, why don't you tell me about it? Yeah, I've been cutting myself, I don't feel good about myself. And I said, oh man, your parents know? Well, no, I'm kind of scared to tell them. No, why don't we help you? Would it be okay if Caitlin could sit with you and we could tell them together? Would that be more helpful? Yeah, that'd be great. You do that, Caitlin? They'd be like, yeah. Right? While that's happening, if it's me in the room with them, Pastor Matt's getting their parents who are dropping them up, picking them up and saying, come on in, and you talk for a bit. And they all go home and it's settled. It's settled in the sense that now they are dealing with it. And however they choose to deal with it is their business. Of course, we talk to the parents, and a lot of my ministry is, I know Pastor Matt kind of is focused on sponsor stuff. I'm focused heavily on parent interactions. Maybe I was regretting that the other night, but I am anyway. We're talking to the parents and saying, look, we've got these different resources that we can help. If you want to come in later this week with your student, we can talk and get you hooked up with some counseling, you know what I mean? We want to help you, but you have to be the one that knows this. There's never a time where somebody is injuring themselves, injuring someone else, or doing anything illegal that you as sponsors don't report it to us that night. Please don't wait till you get home and say, oh yeah, this is what happened. That night before you leave the building. Okay? As soon as you hear it in your small group, you're like, uh-oh, red flag. I'm going to be here an extra hour tonight. Okay? Yes, sir?
How are you going to handle that with the regional group?
That's a good question.
Don't answer it yet.
Yeah.
It might require some thinking.
Yeah. Off the top of my head, I'm thinking we do have a coach in place there that can deal a little bit. And if it's real serious, we can, Nick's in play and we can bring people in by phone or whatever. But yeah, we'll think through that a little bit more. Yes, ma'am.
If they're being abused by a parent, of course, we wouldn't involve the parent at that point, but we would involve the police.
Right, and that's where you bring it to us. Because if I screw up on it, then I gotta take the hit. If you screw up on it, then I've gotta take the hit. And I didn't have the chance to screw up. Right? And so, that's why you bring it to us. But yeah, in that situation, we'd have to figure it out. There's different, and we've dealt with that situation in the last couple of years. So, okay? All I'm saying is please, please, please don't do more. This is where this comes from, is when we try to be more for a student than we're really meant to be. Okay? Again, most of the students who come to our ministries, Christian or not, have parents who care desperately about them and are way more invested in their life than we will ever be. Even if they don't think that's true, it's still true. And they have the right, both legally and biblically, to actually be the ones that walk their kids through this crisis time. Okay? About 12 years ago, we were downtown in Glebe one night, and one of the small groups, two girls in the same small group, same night, reported to the sponsor that they'd been sexually abused in the recent past. Went to the parents, met with both parents that week. One set of parents were like, oh, thank you very much, called the police. I sat in court with the girls, so with the sponsor, dealt with the girls living a happy life. You know, scar tissue, but she's living a pretty happy life. Other parents said, thanks a lot, we'll deal with this ourselves. Nothing ever happened. The girl's still struggling with the baggage, but it's never really been dealt with. And I look at both situations and I go, it's too bad. I love those girls. I wish it could have been done differently maybe but that's the parents that have to learn that at the end of the day. Okay?
So that document, we need to sign it every year, right? Is it part of this package?
No, it's part of the Child Youth Worker Protection Policy. And do they have to sign off on it every year?
They don't have to sign off on it every year, and if it's not up to date, then you'll get something from me probably Monday. And it's all online. It's read through, do a little test, and
Good.
you don't have to do it every year.
So, yeah, there's a gal at the church named Sheila Frieder, some of you know. She monitors this for all the teachers and and everything. Look at Debbie trying to sneak in quietly without being noticed. Hey, Debbie, good to see you! Okay, we're just going to start over now that Debbie's here. Leland, can you pick it up with the music? Good to see you, Debbie. Welcome. Could you someone make sure she has one of these things? Are we going to get into that now?
Have you done that for another church program? Is it very serious?
Yes. Yeah. If you're done like Awana or Sunday school, it's the same thing for all minors. Sheila will red flag you, will alert you if there's something you need to redo, whether it's a police check or a portion of that system. That's her job, and to be honest, I don't interact with that a whole lot, other than she'll occasionally give me a list of 3 or 4 people that are not returning her emails and refuse to hand in their things. And then I have to go contact us and do it. Matt, maybe we could have a round of candy as we go into the last document. I think they're in the back of the van. Yeah, get a round of candy going. Okay. All in favor?
Falling asleep?
All right. Let's go. On this document, this cover page, you're going to be signing and returning to us, preferably before the weekend's over. But ideally, because you've actually read it over and you're good to go. This is something we call an annual covenant, which means every year we ask you to sign off on it, okay? I'm going to work through the documents at a reasonable speed, recognizing some of you have heard this 6 and 8 and 10 times, but also recognizing that some of you, this might be maybe the second time because you've seen most of these things as you're getting ready. Workers' covenant. You saw this in the Child Youth Worker Protection. We ask you to look at this each year again and sign off on it. You see a same place to sign at the bottom as well. I promise. And then there's a list of 10 things you're committing to. Pray for the children and youth. Show genuine love. Work in harmony. Live above reproach is my summary of number 4. Be prepared. And there's just things that go beyond just Child Youth Worker Protection. It's just, I'm committing to actually being a good worker. So read that over and sign the bottom. The next one is called the Peacemaker's Pledge. You all with me on that? It's the second page, front side. Peacemaker's Pledge. This document, which I think is one of our best written documents, and I had nothing to do with writing it, and I still think so. This is basically saying that I am going to live at peace with everyone as much as it depends on me. Okay? I am going to go out of my way to make a peaceful environment. Alright? I know I've said this, or Pastor Matt has said this to you as we've been recruiting you as sponsors. You have to realize, just Satan is not stupid. Okay? I mean, on some levels compared to God he is, but he's pretty conniving and he's got some good ideas. 50 years ago, Satan decided the best way to get after a North American culture that more or less loves Jesus is to attack marriages. If I can destroy marriage, I can destroy family. I'd say he's been pretty successful the last 50 years, wouldn't you? He's destroyed marriage, he's destroyed families, we've got an entire generation that doesn't even know who Jesus is anymore. Okay? Think the same way with you and your sponsor partner. No, you're not getting married, more on that in the moral statements. But there is a partnership. And Satan's looking at you and your sponsor partner and going, if I can get these two fighting about what translation of the Bible we should be using in small groups, then I can get it to students. You laugh, but I actually had that discussion with 2 sponsors not that long ago. Okay? You've got to be willing to live at peace. This means simple things like, we know that Met Youth is one way of many ways of doing youth ministry. We know that you probably grew up in a church and went to a youth group where they did things differently. We get that. We get that there's a church down the road that's doing something a little bit different and you know, it's way better. We get it. We understand. But this is the way we do it. And we try our best, and I think you know, if nothing else, we do try our best to try and be as effective as we can in all the different areas. Okay? Don't know sign language, just yell it out. No, it's okay. Okay, perfect. Yeah, no, that's fine. Thanks. So live at peace. That's the heart of this document, but read it over. Okay? And there's some good tips on how to do that. The moral issues and wisdom guidelines. I'm going to read all of these over word for word because I want to make sure we understand it. Okay? And then good. Some of you might accuse us of being Pharisees in some of these, but this is what we would defend this under the guide of being above reproach. So there's things we're asking you in this document that we know go beyond the Scripture in some cases, and we're happy to identify that. I'll let you know even as we go through. But we're asking you to be above reproach as you work with students. And quite honestly, it's a sacrifice we make to be able to help students come closer to God. You know. Alcohol. Youth workers will not engage in any kind of abuse of alcohol, i.e. drunkenness. And I'm going to skip the proof texts that go with them, but please look them up and make sure you're understanding why we're saying this. Youth workers will not expose their students to alcohol at any time, in any way, including via social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. So in other words, being above reproach in this area means that your students shouldn't see a picture of you out with your friends and you know, with the beer sitting at the table. A grade 11 student who has a sponsor or an adult in their life they really trust that thinks social drinking is okay, to them that's permission to go to the party Friday night. Okay? That's what being above reproach means. We don't need to spend the next hour talking about the pros and cons of social drinking. doesn't give me the authority to tell you what to do with that. I can tell you that when I decided to go into youth ministry vocation 25 years ago, I decided I wasn't doing it. I personally have seen way too much damage in alcohol to ever justify having a beer. It's just me. You know? I'm not sure I ever tasted a beer, so I'm not sure if it tastes so good that it's worth all of those risks, but I guess if you think it is, go for it. If it's that important to have a glass of wine with your spaghetti, then whatever. You know, that's your deal. I'm not even really judging you. I don't see the value personally. That's my conviction, which right comes across as a conviction. I don't see it. So, but that's your deal, and Scripture doesn't give me the authority to tell you not to drink. I get that. I've read it. I understand. So, if you're going to have social drink, that's your business. Obviously, you'd never be drunk, because that Scripture does. It is clear on that one. Obviously, you wouldn't be in those situations. And what we're asking you to do is not expose students to alcohol. If for no other reason, students are minors. And the world, the society, the law has determined they're not old enough to properly engage with that. Okay, questions on that? Are we good? Tobacco, drugs. Sponsors will not engage in any time in the use of tobacco or illegal drugs. Movies. Any movie including G-rated must receive the verbal direct blessing of each student's guardians before showing. Okay? Anybody know what PG stands for in movie rating? Parental guidance, right? You get that Greek word parental, parent. You know what I'm saying? It's not that hard, people. You know? Again, it goes back to parents and gaming. Stay away from it. Honestly, you guys are way too creative to have a movie night. Way too creative. There's nothing as antisocial as putting a movie in and staring at a screen for 2 hours. You know, play a game. I saw these guys play this game last night. What do you call that game, Matt? Cockroach. What was it called? Cockroach? Cockroach? I'm just staring at it, just mesmerized with how weird it was and wild and simple. And yet the four of them sat for who knows how long, actually getting to know each other. You know? Do you feel like you know Pastor Matt so much better now that you lied to him about having a cockroach or whatever? Yeah. Play a game! You don't need to show movies. If you absolutely have to, we ask that you get verbal permission from each parent. And when they ask you why, say because you're the parent and we want you to guide what they watch. Sadly, most of them will laugh at you and go, that's ridiculous, they can watch whatever they want. Or, we trust you. But that's them just, you know, giving us the responsibility that's not ours. Music. All music played in the presence of a minor must live up to the standards of Philippians 4:8. This includes at formal and informal events. Christian music performed by Christian artists is encouraged. Okay? I don't care if you listen to country music and pretend it's Christian music. And Brad Paisley gives a shout out to God when he gets his award. That's your business. But keep it to yourself. Simple, simple, simple. Have CHRI on your speed dial. When students are with you, have CHRI playing. It's not that bad. Okay? I'm always amazed by people who can come into church, sing 4 songs, and be in the presence of God, and go home and turn on 89 point, what is it, 89 or something? Is that? I don't know. I don't get it, to be honest with you. And again, I'm trying not to judge because I'm not really a music guy, so we can pick on me for sports. But I don't get it. But whatever. That's, for our students, we ask you to Christian music, Christian artists. And you can go both ways on the discrepancies there. Okay, you have non-Christian people singing Christian songs and vice versa and so on. So, okay? Questions along the way? Can you jump in if you have questions? That would be okay. Just to move this along. And please do jump in. Gaming. Any gaming, including E-rated. E is for everyone. Must receive the verbal direct blessing of each student's guardian before being played. Again, simple as asking. Just so we're clear, I don't want to see Call of Duty on anybody's small group party gaming tournament. I don't want to see it. I don't even want to hear the argument. I might, boys, I might punch you in the face if you try to defend Call of Duty as an uplifting, God-honoring event to do that'll draw people closer to the center of the circle. It's not true. Stop lying to yourselves, okay? If you want to play it on your own, that's your business. But with our students, we don't do stuff that. Anyway. Dress. Youth workers will lead the way in dress. Now this one's a little bit more tougher to navigate. Okay, listen carefully to the intent. Youth workers will lead the way in dress that demonstrates modesty and a desire to not have sisters or brothers in Christ stumble in their walk. What and how much we wear should be determined based on stated desire. So in other words, think about what you're putting on when you come out to youth group. Okay? Just as a bit of a clue, most students aren't looking to you to set the fashion standard for how they're going to be dressing. You don't need to take a grade 11 girl shopping with you to pick an outfit so they'll think you're really cool when you come to youth group. Okay? They're going to think you're really cool because you passionately love God and actually don't care about what you're wearing all that much. You know what I mean? It's just me. There's a great debate between godly people about whether or not girls wearing less is a stumbling block to their brothers, therefore they should cover up more. I tend to lean towards that. You could make a pretty good case for guys, you know, it's not necessarily fair to make girls dress in a certain way so you don't have to stumble. Get control of things, right? We tend to lean towards the girls. Help your brother out. Throw on a shirt. If you don't, we always have a bag of t-shirts sitting at most pool parties and that kind of thing. And Carol's more than happy to help you out with that. Do I need to tell the story again? Do we need to tell the story, Carol? Who wants to hear the story? All right. It's one of the very first pool parties I was ever at, and we just decided that in a big meeting, we decided that yes, we need to ask girls to throw a t-shirt on if they're wearing a two-piece swimsuit or something immodest. Just leave it at that. And and this remains true to this day, I don't want to see guys walking up to girls saying throw a t-shirt on. If there's a problem, you go find a gal, whether it's a coach or another sponsor, and say, hey, so-and-so is looking, can you talk to her? Because we don't want a girl to be feeling like she's kind of bitter or whatever that way too. So, we've got this pool party going on, and this girl walks out of the house, and she's wearing this, like, Sports Illustrated swimsuit model look swimsuit on. And we're all kind of going, I shouldn't be looking. Carol, put a t-shirt on that girl. And she, so Carol, the godly woman that she is, walks up to the girl and says, would you mind putting this shirt on? Because, would you mind? They go, oh, I didn't even know, of course. So the girl throws the t-shirt on, dives into the pool, comes out the shallow end, and Carol had handed her a white t-shirt. Anyway, if you don't get that, then good. Your mind's good. So the point is that in all areas of dress, think about what you're putting on. Think about the t-shirts you're wearing. I've said this to you before. When you wear a t-shirt that says Molson Softball Tournament, again, you're endorsing something that we don't want to endorse. It sounds silly, but it really is. Think about the t-shirts you're wearing. The last time I checked, SpongeBob SquarePants doesn't love Jesus, and isn't someone we should be modeling our lives after. Okay, think about that. A fun story. Dora? No, Dora's awesome. Don't go near Dora. Anyway, when I was younger and way more immature, I used to love The Simpsons, and I used to watch it fairly lowercase r religiously. And then we had children, and I still loved The Simpsons. And this is up in the Sioux. Sam might have been 3. And I'm watching The Simpsons one day, and he walks into the room, looks at the TV, and goes, "Go!" And that's a Homer Simpson thing. Sorry, but yeah. And I looked at Cheryl, and she looked at me, and I turned off the TV and had to watch Simpsons again. And that just be thinking about what you're wearing, what you're presenting, and how you're doing that. Okay. And okay. Language. Youth workers will strive to have what comes out of their mouths and how it comes out to be pleasing, positive, and edifying. this is not just don't swear. This is we want to be encouraging people. Okay? And as a little tip, I know I have the spiritual gift of sarcasm. Junior high students don't get sarcasm. Okay? So when you're thinking about that, guys, in your small groups, they just don't get it. And they'll take it as insult. And this is a small little tip. But we want to be encouraging. Right? We want people to feel when they walked away that even if they were rebuked a little bit in behavior or something, that they'll love. You know, we want people to walk away of an engagement with us going, I know for sure they love me, even though that hurt a little bit, what they had to say. You know, so let's just be cautious of that and be thinking about what actually comes out of our mouths. And by the way, if there's words you use in your own personal life that you know would not be acceptable in church life, in youth group life, pretty hard to turn that off when you know, maybe for an hour on Tuesday night, but certainly not at a retreat when you're tired, you know. It's pretty hard to turn off language that way. Dating. Youth workers will strive to live above reproach, both in how they date and whom they date, recognizing that they are an example in word and in deed. Youth workers will never, underline circle, never date a student. Okay? Anyway.
I'll get you back.
So that's just who we date. Obviously, Scripture is clear. We're not to be dating unsaved people. We're not to be giving our hearts to people who don't share Jesus. After years of navigating through this issue, I came to a question that I ask students now. And I'd ask you too if you're single and tell me you've got a new boyfriend. It's so exciting. And the question is simply this. Does he love Jesus more than he loves you? And if it's not an automatic yes, then chances are, you know, we don't have to pretend, oh, he goes to church, he's willing to come to church with me. You know, it's pretty simple. Because we all know we don't want to be one flesh with someone who doesn't love Jesus more than we do. We really don't. And Scripture's pretty clear on that. Do we have 2 Corinthians down there? Yeah. That's a great passage to read, by the way, and really understand, because you will be navigating this issue with your high school students. And girls, more you than others. And guys, the only reason that's true is because there's not enough godly men in that situation. So either way, know this and believe it, okay? And if you're struggling with it, come talk to us, because it is an issue, and I get that. Okay, confidentiality. When dealing with minors, youth workers need to recognize situations that must be reported to their coaches or youth pastor. We talked about this earlier. These sort of situations include those where a student have or may harm themselves, another, or where illegal activity is involved. If in doubt, the youth workers will always err on the side of caution and speak to their coach pastor. Okay? I would much rather you come to me on a Tuesday night and say, yeah, so-and-so said that, they're trying to lose a little weight, so they're skipping breakfast. Does that need to be reported? I'm like, no, I don't think so. Keep an eye on it. Thank you for checking. I'd much rather that than the other way. Does that make sense? And please don't take that as an example as something you don't have to worry about now. You know what I mean? Okay? Social media. Social media accounts should be above reproach. Personal accounts and those promoted should reflect a high standard of morality, integrity, and Christian living. Excluded posts should be those related to, but not limited to, alcohol, gambling, drugs, etc. Okay? I don't even know what to say. There's these, anyway. Be careful what you like. Be careful what you share. Be careful how you speak. Be careful, just be careful. Maybe I'll just leave it at that. Are we anyway, be careful. Students watch that. We all watch that. Carol watches every one of your Facebook accounts. She spends 10 minutes in each account before she goes to bed every night. That's why she's so tired all the time. Be careful. And when somebody, like one of us, says, "Hey, I noticed that you liked a." I don't want to say the words, but you like something. maybe you shouldn't, or you share this, why, or whatever, okay? And that extends to just bad language, bad music, bad pictures, all that, but it also extends to things like, just be careful, even political views and that kind of thing. Just gotta be careful, that's all I'm saying. Have your views, share them. Sadly in Canada, there's no real Christian thing to promote anymore in politics, but, be thinking about that, and just be careful, and be thinking about what you're doing on that. Okay? Any questions on that? I feel like if I were to dive into it anymore, we'd be here another half an hour. Okay? Sexuality, gender. Please pay attention. Sponsors must affirm formally and informally the biblical, God-ordained moral marriage is between that biblical, God-ordained moral marriage is between one man and one woman. They must also affirm that one's gender is that with which they were born. Sponsors must affirm that any departure from this, i.e. LGBTQ, is contrary to God's sacred design for humanity and is therefore wrong in the practicing. Romans, anyway. I agree with and uphold Baltimore minutes. Okay? On that one, watch the wording carefully. This is what we believe. This is what we affirm. Therefore, it is wrong in the practicing. Okay? It is not, don't quote me out of context on this, it's not wrong that somebody might be struggling with the sin of any of these things. Much in the same way if a student comes to you and says, I'm really struggling with pornography. I mean, the sin is wrong, obviously. But to struggle with it is like, okay, that's a sin area you struggle with. If I were to be honest with you, I struggle with the sin of anger. That's my deal. If I'm not acting out in anger, then I'm not sinning, right? Check your heart on that, but you know what I mean. So we want to be careful what it is we're actually saying and what we're not saying here. A student comes to you and they're really struggling with this issue. We're not condemning the struggle of it. Okay? Let me throw some thoughts at you on this, just terminology-wise. I don't think it's biblical to say that a student, that anyone is gay. Okay? When we say that somebody is gay, we all understand what that infers because society has taken over that term. Apart from that, nobody's gay in God's world. You may struggle with the sin of homosexuality, but you're not gay. Does that make sense? You're not transgender. You may be struggling with who God created you to be. But you understand that when the psalmist says that He knit me together in my mother's womb, He actually did that and did it the way He did it for a reason. He didn't do it to confuse you. You might be struggling with that, but that doesn't make you transgender. It certainly doesn't make you a young lady, a guy. So we've got to be very careful how we speak and how we think about these issues. And it would be a good exercise to just sort of think through for yourself, how has the world dragged me towards that way of thinking and talking and acceptance? Okay? This is a difficult one to say and to talk about because I feel like the world is just waiting to pounce on anything anyone like me or anything the church might say and make us sound like we're evil people. I am an evil person, but God has saved me by His grace, and I'm thankful for that. But you know what I mean. And so at Met Youth and at the Met Bible Church, we uphold biblical teaching on this issue. Sadly, it's becoming less and less popular within even Christendom. But that's what we uphold, and that's what we ask you to uphold. Let me just say this, if you're struggling with that, and I don't just mean struggling with the issues, which is possible as well, I'm sure, but if you're just struggling with how that plays out and how that might affect how you would teach, please talk to us, okay? Please respect this church and this youth ministry enough to tell us and not just sign something and come in and have your own secret agenda to change the world from the inside out. Okay? Please respect that enough, or at least respect what we believe in. that fair? And talk to us, like, today, after lunch. Okay? Questions on that? Clarifying and otherwise?
Will you be going over this on Tuesday night at all?
No. We're videoing it, and people who miss this retreat will be asked to watch these things and sign off. And not fast forwarding on video, by the way. Is this still recording?
It's a little bit longer.
Funny if you're sitting in your living room fast forwarding. Any questions on any of this? The last page is I won't spend too much time on it, but read it over. It's a sexuality, conduct, and ministry of the Met. It was actually written by Pastor Rick years ago for staff and elders, but we just love it so much that we're asking our leaders to read it over and sign off on that as well. Okay? So, what you want to hand to Pastor Matt, or Nick, or Carol, is front page signed and each individual page signed at the bottom. We want to know for sure that you've read them, you understand them, and again, please ask us questions if there's something personal you want to talk about that's not appropriate for the discussion. Good. Pastor Matt, sorry.
All right, so obviously a lot of content. I just want to take one quick minute because over the years I've kind of put in, I don't want to say a lot just in case it doesn't seem like a lot to you, but I'm not a super administrative guy. Just some work in order to make Tuesday night interactions and preparation for that a little bit easier for you. So I just wanted to be on the record so I know everyone heard it here and whoever watches on video as well, or I think our power. I think that turned off, but either way. So what I want to talk about is basically just give you some practical information. I'm going to do it in a few minutes because it's already been a long session. The first is just that for you guys, Lifeline, the Lifeline, as far as the program and how it works and information that you can get, you should be going to metyouth.com, okay? All that to say that it might, we might not always tweet everything out. Not everything will necessarily go on Facebook. We might not necessarily put everything out on all of our social media stuff, but the website always has everything. We work hard to make sure the website is up to date. And so I just want to continue to direct you there, okay? If you go to Facebook and what you're looking for as far as information isn't there, then make sure you actually go to the website, metyouth.com. On there, there's kind of all of our, there are a few things that I want to draw attention to. Specifically, there's just lots of good information. Those circles videos you saw, all that kind of stuff is all up there. But the sponsors tab, which the password I will remind you of at least 1,000 times, / every time I tell you to go to the sponsors tab. It's just sponsors, no uppercase, and then the years of sponsorship, 16, 17, okay? So it changes every year. And on there's a few things I just want to point out to you guys. Firstly, it's just that there's actually an